Hello, friends. Welcome to Longevity Live. Today is Saturday, October 11th, and I'm excited to jump in with you all. My name is Dr. Pre. I'm a practicing longevity doctor, and I'm on a mission to bring this better, life-saving form of healthcare to the world. I'm very passionate about longevity medicine. Today, switching up the format a little bit, I'm going to be putting out this content once every 2 weeks and focusing a little bit more on going deep into stories that you can apply to your life right away. Today, I'm going to talk about the most important sleep habit to get you feeling better now and prevent disease, why sugar is the most dangerous thing for your liver health and what you can do about it, and why quality longevity medicine should cost you less than $500 a year, despite what a lot of the headlines say out there. So, if you enjoy this and want to support me, please give us a follow, like this post, give us a follow, subscribe. Here is our Twitter. Here is our YouTube. We are always at vitaveda.health. And on Substack, this will be released as a newsletter as well. Okay, let's jump right into it. The first story is that consistency is the most important sleep habit. Now, I go over this in the newsletter, but I want to voice it over a little bit earlier as well. So this is an article that came out from Nature recently, and it talks about how to get the best night's sleep, and it focuses a lot on circadian rhythm. And I wanted to emphasize that this is actually very much so what I see with my own patients. The most important thing that gets people feeling better right away and helping them get high quality sleep, which will lead to a reduction in all sorts of diseases long term, right? So you're going to feel better in the short term and in the long term, is this consistency of when you go to sleep and when you wake up. Now, what kind of diseases might you ask are you at risk for if your sleep quality is not good? Heart disease, diabetes, cancers, not to mention things that just reduce your quality of life, like depression and other mood disorders. So this is a huge deal. And there's a big checklist that I go through with my patients of the various sleep habits, right? There are things like making sure that you don't drink too much caffeine late in the evening or in the afternoon, making sure you don't drink too much alcohol, make sure you don't have a heavy meal, etc. Making sure you're not on your phone or doing something else stimulating in the bedroom, therefore not associating the bedroom with anything other than sleep. However, I'll tell you anecdotally what I've found is that what makes the biggest difference is this consistency. And now we're seeing more and more evidence to back it up. And this is a great article. I'll let you read it. I do think it's behind a paywall, just as an FYI. But there's a whole bunch of noise out there around sleep. And it makes sense because it's something that all of us will immediately tell it changes our quality of life. If you don't sleep well, you're not going to feel very good. There are many gadgets, supplements, and techniques out there. It's $100 billion a year industries, the sleep aid market. And this, like I said, it could be a supplement that's part of it. It could be your sleep tracker. It could be your 8 sleep. All of these things are great. However, you don't need to spend a lot of money in order to do this well, right? All you have to do is focus on optimizing your circadian rhythm, and you will get higher quality of sleep and keep yourself healthy for the longer run. So, what are the keys to this? There's really 3 main things that matter, 2 of which are related to light. A lot of your circadian rhythm is regulated by your eyes. And you might be asking, well, okay, what does this have to do with going to sleep at the same time and waking up at the same time? Isn't this a willpower thing? To some extent, yes. Right. Obviously, if you're out partying on the weekends, as a lot of my younger patients do, that's a choice that you're going to have to make to not do that. But you may also lay in bed and not feel sleepy or fall asleep if you don't do the right things. And these are very simple. Okay, so 3 main things that I want you to focus on. Just 1, get some blue light in the day. And that doesn't mean, blue light from something artificial. It means go outside. Even if it's cloudy, even if it's raining, there's a ton of light that will stimulate your receptors and reset your circadian rhythm. Okay, a nice 15-minute walk at any point of the day is perfect. Okay. Secondly, avoid lights in the middle of the night. If you have a night light, get rid of it. If you have to get up and go to the bathroom, don't turn on the light. All right. This will make a big difference because it will make sure your body isn't getting confused and thinking, oh, okay, it's time to wake up. Okay. And the last one is to not eat too late. Okay, I tell my patients don't eat within 3 hours of bed and make lunch your heaviest meal. This will really make sure that your body temperature stays right, but more importantly, your body gets the signal that, okay, this is a time to sleep and not a time to be awake. All of that will significantly make it easier to for you to fall asleep at the right time and then therefore wake up at the right time. And one way you'll know that if this is working is simply you're waking up without your alarm, which means you're getting enough sleep and you're getting that consistency there. And of course, there are other sleep habits that can derail your sleep quality. I mentioned a few of those, like having too much coffee or having alcohol before bed. But these I found don't quite have the same impact as the all important consistency. And I think that's really the message I want to put out here is there's a lot of things people tell you to do, right? And all these sleep trackers, they can tell you if you're not sleeping well, but how do you prioritize what behaviors to change? What is that lead domino that's going to help you the most? This is a theme you're going to hear from me over and over again. What's the first thing you go towards? And sleep consistency is huge. Again, I mentioned that some folks have trouble with this because they have a different lifestyle on the weekends, and I totally get that, right? What my challenge to you, though, if you are one of these people, is try it for one weekend. So you go from Monday through Friday, having whatever your regular working sleep schedule is, and do it for one weekend, the same sleep schedule. Maybe you go out in the middle of the day instead of at night. Okay, so try that out. And then see what happens the following week, how you feel as you transition back into your work week, which you should be sleeping around the same time. Now you're going to get around 10 days of sleeping consistently at the same schedule. See how you feel. Because a lot of my patients, when they do this, voila, they're like, you know what, I'm not going back. They just feel so good. This is another example of how longevity medicine can make you feel really good now and help you prevent disease in the long term. You're killing two birds with one stone, or I guess keeping two alive with one stone in this case. Okay. Now, I'm going to do a longer chat on sleep, but I want you to keep one thing in mind that we are talking about sleep quality here. The other big element of sleep is sleep duration. So if you're going to bed consistently, but you're only sleeping 3 hours a night, it's not going to be that helpful. It's not going to get you the same feelings of restfulness and energy throughout the day that we're really looking for to tell that you're sleeping well enough. So whether you're someone who needs 5 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours or 9 hours of sleep, get to your number, but do it consistently. That's going to make a huge difference here. All right, next, we have the longevity hotline. And this week, we're going to talk about how sugar, not alcohol, is your liver's biggest risk and how you can reverse that risk factor. Okay, so this is something that I think is pretty cool and is a little bit more in the forefront of medicine. And this is what I love about longevity. We get to see what's changing out in these specialties. So here we have a Reddit user, 53-year-old male who's a diabetic, has lost almost 15 pounds through diet and exercise over the past 2 years, which is awesome. Amazing job doing that. Their A1C is right around 6.1. It sounds like it's still around 6.1. They recently got a fiber scan and they got a CAP score of 329. Their ALT is also high at 42. What are the options at this stage? They don't really drink alcohol, maybe 1 to 2 beers in a weekend, but they can stop that. They're sort of kind of saying, okay, well, what now? All right. I love this question because it hits on a couple of key themes in longevity medicine. So let's go through it. But I think the most useful thing here is to talk about what is a fiber scan, what is the CAP score, and how does that relate to the fact that this person has diabetes and this ALT. All right. So a little bit of background. The number one reason for liver failure these days is fatty liver disease. Okay. It used to be alcohol for a long time, for forever, basically. But up until a few decades ago, it's shifted now to fatty liver disease. And it's driven by the same exact factors that cause insulin resistance and will eventually cause diabetes. So glucose metabolism or abnormal glucose metabolism in this case. Right. And the reason this happens is because you have excess energy that you take in, and that is stored in your liver as fat. And at some point, your insulin system starts over secreting insulin as you get insulin resistant. And that also causes more fat deposited in your liver cells. This causes inflammation, eventually cell death and scarring, and can lead to liver failure. And then you need a liver transplant. I'm going to show this video really quickly. It's a short video from Yale Medicine. It's really great. It just kind of depicts it. And I'll kind of talk through it. These fat cells deposit around your liver. You literally they call it fatty liver. The liver can swell, and eventually a lot of these liver cells die. And when those liver cells die is when that enzyme called ALT, alanine transaminase, is leaked into your blood. And that's what this Reddit user was talking about. His ALT is elevated. And this process is a little bit insidious because it continues over time, and now new cells have that fat in it. And eventually, the inflammation from that fat causes scarring and causes permanent damage to the liver. So that's going to be a key here, is that this damage at the level of the fatty liver is not permanent, but once it gets to scarring, it is. And this blood test, the alanine transaminase or ALT, this is really important because this is how I screen with my patients. Is this happening at the moment? Right. And along with the hemoglobin A1C and other insulin resistance markers, such as fasting insulin, there's something called LPIR. We won't get into all that right now, but we can predict whether or not fatty liver disease is occurring. And all of these tend to trend together. It would be very rare, at least from a fatty liver standpoint, to see a high ALT and not see a high hemoglobin A1C or triglycerides or fasting insulin or a few of these other things. And so this user went ahead and got something called a fiber scan. And this is pretty cool. So this allows us to take a step further and use an ultrasound to see how much fat and potentially scarring is in the liver. And so here's a short video I found from MWHC Connection, that all this is linked in the show notes, by the way, that really shows what this looks like. Okay, it's an ultrasound. It takes 5 to 10 minutes. It's non-invasive. It doesn't hurt. They just kind of sit there and they get really good information to determine if you have any fat in the liver, and if so, how much, and also if you have any scarring in the liver, and if so, how much. Okay, so this is a cool thing that is starting to emerge more and more. As you can see, or as you can imagine, it's a liver specialist, which is a sub branch of GI called hepatology. They typically do this. And based on this information, they can determine what kind of intervention to take. And this is a little bit technical. I won't kind of go through this, but essentially, this is a paper, a journal article that shows the algorithm of what they do depending on what they find from that fiber scan. But you can see here lifestyle interventions, weight loss if the person is obese, pharmacology, medications, cardiovascular disease reduction, and diabetes care are all part of the equation. And here in this left column in green is if someone is low risk, if they have not too much of a burden. But of course, as it escalates here, in this case, to high risk, then they may need much more aggressive treatments, including almost for sure going to see a specialist. Okay, so let's bring it back to our Reddit user. So he's lost some weight, but his hemoglobin A1C is still 6.1. His ALT is still high at 42. So in my practice, our targets are less than 5.5% for that A1C, which is a measure of average blood glucose, and less than 25 for that ALT. So I could tell you right away from that, there's a chance that he has fatty liver. He also got this fiber scan, and the CAP score was 329. And that indicates there is fatty liver. The scores are normal is considered less than 275. All right, so this person has some fatty liver still. What does he do now? Is it reversible? Well, the great news is yes, it is reversible. And we have a lot of lifestyle and medication options because it is the exact same underlying disease process that causes diabetes. It is that same spectrum that goes from normal to insulin resistance to pre-diabetic to diabetes. All of that goes hand in hand. Obviously, this is the big problem that's out there in the world right now, especially in the westernized world. But because it's a big problem, there's a lot of focus on it and a lot of things that are solutions. So that's lifestyle and also medications. From the lifestyle side, for sure, you want to stop alcohol in this situation because the liver is being damaged. We can see that with that ALT blood marker rising. Okay, so we don't want to double hit the liver with another insult to it, which alcohol is the big one. Now, this person is only drinking, say, 1 to 2 beers on a weekend. That's probably not going to do that much, but if they could stop that, that would be better. Just give them a better chance. Next, we also want to eat fewer simple carbs. We want to keep that average blood glucose lower. Okay. You want to increase zone 2 exercise. You want to increase muscle mass. That also directly helps with blood sugar. And then make sure you optimize sleep and stress. From a medication standpoint, the first line, especially if somebody is obese, as it mentioned in that paper, is to do a GLP-1 receptor agonist like Ozempic. Pioglitazone is another great one. There's so many. There's Jardiance, which is an SGLT2 inhibitor. Those are probably not quite as good for this specific situation. There's metformin, especially for folks who have a little bit less budget or if their insurance won't cover it. So it just depends a little bit on the exact situation, but there are many medications for it. And in general, what we find is if body weight drops by 5 to 10%, this can lead to about a 15% drop in that CAP score, which is directly looking with the ultrasound at the liver, seeing how much fatty liver there is. Okay, but I do want to emphasize that if there is scarring in the liver, that is not reversible. And at that point, you want to be much more aggressive because you have less liver cells, fewer liver cells, less liver tissue that is now doing the work of the full liver. So you really want to preserve that part of the liver that continues to do well, and therefore you want to be more aggressive in your targets. Maybe you aim for A1C of less than 5.3 and an ALT of less than 20. At that point, I would say work with the liver specialists on that. You're almost certainly going to want to start with medication, even if you get your lifestyle there. Now, most people are not getting fiber scans. Is this something that you should get and get a CAP score? Well, I talk about this with my patients a little bit. And the great thing about the fiber scan is that it's fairly cheap, a few $100s out of pocket. So even if your insurance won't cover it, it's not going to break the bank. And it's completely non-invasive and benign because it's an ultrasound. But there are only a few scenarios in which I think you should definitely get one. That's if you have a family history of either early liver disease, liver failure, or liver cancer. Fatty liver is actually the number 2 cause of liver cancer these days, and it's on track to being the number 1 cause. If you have a long history yourself of excessive alcohol use or diabetes, or if just getting that extra data would motivate you and take your motivation to the next level in terms of making sure you're staying healthy with your habits. I think those are 3 main scenarios: family history, personal history, and just getting more data for motivation. Outside of that, you could just, as long as you're continuing to track your blood markers, hemoglobin A1C, fasting insulin, ALT, I think that'll tell you if you're headed in the right direction and if you're reversing it. But overall, I wanted to make sure I introduce fatty liver disease because this is a major problem and we have a lot of great ways to fix it and more data we can get to fully assess your risk. All right, now let's go to the last story here. A secret room, $160,000 longevity chamber inside an elite athlete's recovery tricks. Intriguing, right? Well, the name of my story actually is that quality longevity costs less than $500 a year. And I brought this up because I saw this headline, and I'm not going to lie, it made me roll my eyes a little bit because there are a lot of headlines like this where you hear about a really expensive longevity program, in this case, this athlete, and they're a little bit of clickbait. I think these articles, and we won't even really get into it, but these articles are primarily here to show you, well, to get clicks. They're clickbait. And they're really not that educational because, in my experience, quality longevity costs you at most $500 a year. Okay. And by the way, I think probably the worst culprit of this is Brian Johnson, who is clearly amazing at getting attention on himself and spreading the word of longevity. But he also talks about a litany of biomarkers that he measures that truly are not that useful from a true medical standpoint, and how he spends $2 million a year on his longevity. Completely unnecessary, but attention grabbing. So I told you that you only need $500. Why is this so cheap? Well, the reason is because the main costs are diagnostics. Almost any intervention is free because the first things you're going to try to do are lifestyle based. You're going to try to improve your diet, exercise, sleep, and lower stress. Now, you could hire a personal chef to cook for you every day and spend a ton of money on your diet, or you could buy fruits and vegetables and learn how to cook them if you don't already know. So there's, of course, a range of money that you can spend on these things, but the lowest cost that is effective is often free. right? So you're really looking at diagnostics, and the main diagnostics are blood tests, and they're quite cheap, and they're getting cheaper by the day. And some of you may have heard of Function Health. We'll just search for real quick right here. And Function Health is really helping democratize some of this. Now, they order a bunch of stuff that I'll be honest with you, I don't think is necessary. I think you could get a really comprehensive panel for about $200 and then just do it twice a year. And there you go. You're less than 500. But again, as with anything, you can spend a lot more if you want to take it to a deeper degree that will have diminishing returns. Now, if you find that something is abnormal in these initial blood tests, or you need some kind of an intervention that is a medication, at that point, typically your insurance will kick in and start to cover it. That's why it doesn't have to be that expensive. And I'll give you one more analogy. It's kind of like a house. You could have a great house for $100,000, or you could spend 1,000 times that and have a ridiculous mansion for $100 million. But the truth is, you just want something that'll put a roof under your head, keep you healthy, keep you covered. Okay, so don't get convinced by the clickbait that longevity is out of your reach. This is really important for me. It is within your reach. This is a new approach to medicine that is different and is better. It's not about spending a lot of money. And I hope that you all continue to hear that message from me, because I think it's really, really important. All right. That is it for today's episode. I appreciate you all. As always, this is not medical advice. If you have any medical issues, please go see a licensed professional who knows you and knows your history. This is educational only. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and comment, and share it with a loved one. Thank you again, and I will see you next time.